Good evening, everyone, and welcome to yet another Chuck Jones Creative Side chat. We're going to bring the humor tonight with a man whose wit is just as sharp as something very sharp, which isn't funny at all, but he is funny. And tonight we're going to explore the world of cartoons, especially printed cartoons and publications. I don't know about you. I grew up reading cartoons in the Sunday paper. That was the only thing that I wanted out of the Sunday paper was the cartoon section. And we are delighted tonight to bring you a legend. And I say that with no small amount of heft and weight to it. He is a legend. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Chuck Jones Creative Side Chat, Mr. Leigh Rubin. Hello, Leigh.
Hey, Ben. Now you're just embarrassing me.
I wanted to see, because the light is is perfect, and I just wanted to see how red could you turn in the light.
Well, I'm looking kind of faded right there. Bad lighting in here.
So I got to tell you, man, I look at your stuff. I'm a big fan of cartoons like this, which is just witty, good, fun humor that applies to everything. I grew up watching. Some of my favorite comedians are just the guys that take stuff out of everyday life and they find something funny in that you see stuff that people may kind of see, and then you highlight it in a way that's just hilarious. And so I've had a blast going through, especially as we did prep for this, and reading all of your cartoons and stuff, especially the ones that we have today. And it kind of breaks into everybody needing to laugh. We all need to laugh. And you've got such a great sense of humor. I wanted to know, as this is the Chuck Jones Creative Side chat, and we're going to explore the life and times of Leigh Rubin. We have this Chuck moment, right? And usually, always, there is some moment, whether they've met Chuck or some thing around Chuck that has influenced them greatly. And I wanted to kick off with that tonight, Leigh, and say, what Chuck influence is burned in your memory?
Well, seeing as how I grew up watching Looney Tunes every Saturday morning, I would say that was a pretty big influence. And of course, it still influences my work. I mean, the cast of characters were spectacular, and you really come to appreciate them over the years more and more. As the more you see them, the more you appreciate them. I did have a Chuck moment, and that was in sometime in the late 1990s when I went down to Orange County to Chuck Jones or Linda Jones Enterprises. I had an agent with me, and we met with Craig, and Chuck was there. I did not know Chuck was going to be there, and it was just this kind of surreal moment. It was like, wow, there's Chuck right there. I'm usually not starstruck, but in this case, I was kind of starstruck. And I brought a box calendar, and I either gave it to Craig and then he gave it to Chuck, and Chuck said how much he liked the gag. He said it was a good gag, and I said that kind of made my day, month, year.
Yes. From the guy from the ultimate gag writer between him and Mike Maltese to make a comment on your stuff. I don't know. I would have melted into the floor. I don't know how you didn't do that.
Well, it was just kind of like, wow, that's like, I never want to ask people for their autograph. I should have.
Yeah, I'd be like, would you mind signing it? Is that okay? Leigh, as we get kicked off here, I do want to let people know, welcoming them on Facebook. If you're watching on Facebook, welcome to the Chuck Jones Creative Side chat. If you're watching on Zoom, welcome to the Chuck Jones Creative Side chat. If you have questions for Leigh as we go about our program this evening, you can pop it in the chat in either format, and they will get it to me, and then I will read those for Leigh. We also have the chuckjonescatalog.com/Rubin, and that is where you can see everything that we have tonight available for purchase, which is hilarious. And we'll be looking at some things as we go through the evening. So, Leigh, I wanted to start off because you and I have very different experiences in kindergarten, and it really kicks off. You're an artist, you're a humorist, you're a creative. You do so many things, and it all usually starts somewhere. So I wanted to start in kindergarten because your kindergarten experience I'm not going to make this about me. We're not going to cry over this. I'm not going to take the chip that's on my shoulder. Everybody would turn the thing off. Let's just say my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Blackburn, right, was
Mm-hmm.
not thrilled with my artistic creation that did not follow the rules and stay within the lines, and put mine under everybody else's and said I didn't do it right. So, Mrs. Blackburn. But Mr. Rubin, you had a far different experience.
I had a far different experience. I like to say that what I practiced in kindergarten, I practice today, and I don't know, mastered. I really had two skills that I really worked at, and that was drawing and napping. And I can say, if you were to ask my wife today, she would say, not much has changed. I think she's in the next room over there watching. So if you are, you see that in a few seconds after the delay. So I am going to recreate here, since you're going to ask me this, right?
Oh, I'm asking you.
What's the first cartoon you ever drew?
Yes.
And for those of you who have not seen this, boy, are you in for a real treat. So I drew a picture of a giant, and the giant was so big that I had to put his head on the other side of the piece of paper. And it looked remarkably like this. And this is available now from as an NFT for $10 million.
Excellent.
I'll even sign it for you if you want.
That's a bargain.
Yeah. But my Mrs. Kara, or Miss Kara, I actually did not know her marital status at the time. She just thought this was hilarious, and my parents thought it was very funny, and that's all I needed was that bit of encouragement, and off I went into a life of down the wrong road or the right road of cartooning.
So what I love about that is at kindergarten, you're already thinking in this way, right? It's clearly you were born with it, and like to take something and be that observant, which is why I said I love what you pull off in the work that you do, because you take things that we can see every day, and maybe we pass it up, and you find it, you highlight it, and you bring out the funny in it, and we're like, yeah, that's hilarious. So you started off in kindergarten.
I didn't even think that was funny at the time. I was just solving the problem but then I've realized pretty much that's what I do every day is solve this problem. I have to say, see this box? This is what I actually have to put something in this thing every day. And so it just worked out really well. And that's like, so the lesson I learned in kindergarten, it still carries through.
Still carries through. Well, and speaking of an early start, because as you got more into school, as the years went by, so to speak, you got into third grade, and there's kind of another instrumental tag. Mine was at sixth grade, and that experience sucked also. So, but your third grade experience was, like, I'm not going to say a catalyst, but it kind of was a catalyst. And before Scott, can you show the kindergarten picture, please? So let's put up. Look at that.
There we
are. How adorable.
Yeah, you see the cuffs on those pants?
Yes, I do.
Well, I gotta say, I used to play in the sandbox a lot. My mom would say, "You bring more sand that's in the sandbox home with you every day." I just love deco photos too. You just don't see those anymore.
You don't see. And what does that say? June of
63?
63, I think. Look at that.
Yeah.
And what's funny about that is cuffs came back like 25 years later, and then they came back 25 years later after that. So really, you were fashion forward, sir.
Yes, and still in a t-shirt.
Right? Like you did the whole Steve Jobs thing. You have remained consistent. It's t-shirt and jeans, and I appreciate it about you. That's adorable. Well, I wanted to get it because I wanted to give a shout out to your third grade teacher, Joy. And hopefully she's watching this evening because
hi Joy.
Yes, and
I did invite her.
You did invite her, and I hope she's on to see this, because I wanted to tee this up for you to say that really, especially in kids, right? The creativity is there, and it kind of gets beat out of us as we get older, right? Or it gets inspired and we do something with it. And I think key to that are teachers, because they can see this creativity, especially at a young age, and it's how that's kind of being fostered and pulled forward. And why don't you explain what that influence from Joy was on you in third grade?
Well, I don't even remember the exact artwork. It was something with that, the same kind of that construction paper, that colored construction paper that's a little bit rough, and we had white glue, that kind of pasty white glue
Hmm.
that you use with a tongue depressor,
Yes.
smear around, and the little scissors that are the safety scissors that you can't cut anything with. They're little round heads. And I
Yes.
just cut out some weird designs and we're pasting them on a little, uh, I don't know, couldn't have been more than that big, but uh, Joy, or Mrs. Mullen at the time,
Hmm.
she really complimented me on that work of art. And again, I just love that idea that, you know, she took the time. Now, I've never said this before. She may have said that to everyone, but I took it personally.
Yes.
So
And that's
so
the
I,
key. You
and
took
I
it
thank her
personally.
for that.
Absolutely. And we love Mrs. Mullen. Joy, you are a fantastic lady. Can we show the My Goon? Now is this, correct me if I'm wrong. Is this what started in third grade?
Well, there was one prior to that. Um, that my dad had taught both my brother and sister and me how to draw the Goon from Popeye. He was a huge comics fan. And he read, you know, there it is,
That one, right?
Alice the Goon, or I guess this is Alice. I don't know. It's the Goon, and you can see that kind of line, the one line that makes the eyebrows through the nose, and got the two
Mm-hmm.
dark eyes. And so my dad drew something like that and showed it to us, and each one of us had our own version of it. And this was a very rough uh, version of mine. And I drew this thing from, you know, elementary, junior high, high school, into college. Um, and then I brought it back, oh, I don't know, it could be about 15 years ago or so. I started incorporating just the head in my signature in the daily cartoon. So
Which is
that's what that little
awesome.
funny looking thing is in there.
And you started that so young. That's what's awesome to me. We look at it, I'm like, man, have I slacked off in life? Because you were running and gunning from like kindergarten and third grade. You already had a brand. You're in third grade. Leigh the brand.
The
Here's my
brand, yes.
mark. There's a TM on it. I don't know what TM means. I'm in third grade, but people put it on there, so don't mess with that. Love that you were a brand at third grade.
Who knew?
Who knew?
Who
Like you
knew?
were,
I
I'm
didn't
not gonna
know.
say you were ahead of your time, but like you were ahead of everybody else in that, like the entrepreneur Leigh. Um, so you take that in third grade, you get, you remember that thing. It kind of moves you forward, and as you get into um, high school and jobs and all that, you start kicking off. Your dad was a big influence on you, and I think um, that's a wonderful story there. In because your dad ran a printing shop, correct?
Yeah, he started his own printing company. He had worked for Max Factor, the cosmetics firm. He was an uh, advertising man back in the day, and then Max Factor got bought by Revlon, and then he worked for a brief time at Baskin Robbins, their corporate headquarters, wherever it was in Burbank, but knew he couldn't stay there because he liked ice cream so much. So he started his own print shop in Panorama City, California, and I worked there from the time he opened the place for until 1994. So it was 21 years or so.
Hmm.
It was a lifetime, at least a third of a lifetime so
Yes.
far.
Well, and what I love about that, it gave you exposure to, another medium, and, the idea of printing stuff and what you could pull off. And this whole idea of kind of greeting cards, like you read comic strips all the time. I think that's kind of like you were soaking all that, influence up. And then you kind of get into what kind of propelled you next into this idea of like, all right, what if I printed something and then, oh, what the heck, let's see if we can sell it.
Yeah, well, that came from, okay, I was an advertising arts major at Pierce College, and then one day I was walking through this pharmacy in Northridge, and I saw a row of cards by Sandra Boynton, super popular and still very popular today. Her cards were with recycled paper greetings, and they were just great, really funny, simple illustrations, really clever, silly puns on the inside, and that prompted me to think, hey, I could start a greeting card company, knowing nothing about the greeting card business. at all. So I sketched out a cartoon with a raccoon on a big piece of corn, printed up a few, and that's the black and white version of, put it on the counter at the print shop and sold it for a big whopping 50 cents. And again, all I need is that little bit of encouragement. And you can see that the raccoon, it's based on the goon, the circle. All the characters in this line of greeting cards were based on that. Now Ben, did I tell you what the inside of this card was?
No.
I didn't?
No,
Okay,
you just explained the outside.
Okay. Well, can you put it back up again? So
yeah.
I'd love if people want to guess at this, but I'll just give you the answer. It's, I'd like to nibble on your ear. So, and they were all that bad, and some were pretty risque. But within about a year's time, I had 64 different cards. I had racks made. I had people. I was going to trade shows selling these cards. This is all pre-internet, which boggles the mind now. And when I think of how much work had to be done the old-fashioned way.
And you probably had to order from what they would call back in the day a catalog.
Like, well, there was a guy in Pasadena that I went over, and he made racks for me from scratch.
No kidding.
He was yeah, metal fabricator guy. And we made our, and then I think I'd order them. I'd have to get these big racks that would break down so they'd be easy to ship. And then I had, like I said, these various sales reps that I met at various trade shows who were carrying the line. And then orders started coming in, which is time to panic, because that means you have to print a lot more cards.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still working the regular job too, the regular, job for my dad.
So did you have that, did you find that even maybe earlier on too, you kind of had that entrepreneurial spark, that there was something to be like, man, if I could do this,
I'd never thought it through. I just kind of did it. which is
which is
no
normal.
Plan B. There's no plan B. Yeah, okay,
No.
I'm just going to do this, and it at least it's always worked. Sometimes ideas work better than others. Sometimes they don't work so well. But it's like what your mother puts in front of you, and you're not sure you want to eat it. You don't know it until you try.
Well, and you know what I love too is, like, you just started off, right? And you went out and you started doing trade shows. You had racks done. You went from 0 to 64 cards in no time. And you talk about kind of getting those moments of what would I call them? Not like, why can't I even think of the word? So not verification, not ratification. Come on. When you
affirmation.
That's it. Moment. See, that's why I have you on here. You're brilliant with words. You get those moments of affirmation, and I would say selling out a line is probably like I could keep doing this. What was that first experience like when, or you said you had to start printing cards, and then, oh crap, now there's supply, now they're shipping. You're the dude. You're printing, shipping, drawing, everything.
Have to make all the little things that go behind the cards that say what kind of cards they are, birthday or friendship or blank. All the thing, and each one has to go in a plastic bag with a set of 12, depending on how many. I mean, all the nitty gritty stuff of that is not as fun as creating the stuff.
No.
But it taught me a lot about how it all works, and to keep customers happy, because if they got their cards late, let's say some mom and pop greeting card store in Indiana or whatever got their late, you can't sell Valentine's Day cards after Valentine's Day unless there's deep discounted.
Right.
So, and there were times where there were some people not happy with, I didn't get the stuff out in time, but for the most part, it all really worked. And my dad, I couldn't print all this stuff at my dad's place. It wasn't a commercial print shop. It was more mom and pop. So I had to contract with a much larger publisher, or printer rather, for that.
So you get into that, and your first thing that really takes off and goes guns is notable quotes, right?
Well, after doing the cards for a couple of years, I was getting actually pretty burnt out on this.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly do not know where the inspiration from this came, but I took that little goon character, shifted the eyes over, colored it in all black, drew a stem on it, and made it into a musical note. And then I took those musical note characters, made a bunch of terrible puns with them, put them in little matted frames that I would shrink wrap, and I took them to, you know, art shows and would sell them. And there were only a dozen at first, and people just really laughed at these things. I mean, there was nothing else, I guess, quite like that, at least that I had ever seen. And the response was just so encouraging. And at one of these shows, a guy came up to me and said, "Why don't you do a book of these?" I said, "Okay." So I went home and I bought a musical dictionary so I could make more puns, and came up with enough for a book, and then contracted, had a book printed, not a book, 5,000 books.
That, like, you went, it's not like you dabbled in it. You went right for the deep end.
There was no print on demand back then. It was like, okay, so I had 5,000 of these paperbacks of notable quotes printed. I could use the sales reps that I already had for the greeting cards. I already at least had those contacts. And okay, by the way, this 5,000 books were in my parents' house. And my goal was to get rid of these.
I'm sure their goal was for you to get
So excuse me. So it took about 6 months to sell that first 5,000, but then it went into 7 more printings of 5,000 each.
Well, let's just stop on that for a second. It took 6 months. You sound like that's a lifetime. You sold 5,000 copies of something you put together in 6 months.
Well, who else is going to do it?
I'm just saying, you're like, oh, it took 6 months, and then it went into 7 printings, and then 85,000 copies later, I was okay. Like, that's impressive. 5,000 copies in 6 months with no internet? Come on.
Well, that's when I would go to okay, there used to be these stores called Walden Books and B. Dalton.
Ooh, I remember those.
Purchased by Borders and Barnes and Noble. And I did a book. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself there, but I would go to those stores and they would take them on consignment at first, and they would sell out because I had little counter displays made, just little tiny ones. And as soon as there were 2 different forms. There was a form for consignment books, and then there was a form for they would buy them from you books. And the brown form from B. Dalton, I don't remember what Walden was, but I love getting those brown forms because that means I knew I was getting paid for those. And they saw that. It was terrific. It was, and then, you know, I mean, I went into there were 3 different volumes of notable quotes and a terrible book about sharks in between.
Well, you got to experiment, right?
I did. And that, you know, and I did the American Bookseller show. It was the first one that I ever went to was in Anaheim. Now, what's it called now? Book Expo, I think is. Do they still have that?
I have no idea. That's a good question.
Well, it was ABA, but now it was called Book Expo then.
So, Scott, I want to put up number 8 also. So just to kind of and I'll just tell you, my oldest son, I have teenagers and then I have small children. I have many children. My oldest son, who is the oldest of them all, loves puns, and he finds this stuff hilarious, and he tries to make up his own puns, but I had to give him son, that's not a pun. It's just a very bit, like, if you want, like, read this. Do you see what he did there? Yeah. Okay. That's a pun.
He'll get it. He'll get it
one day. And then every once in a while he gets a good one. But you show him this stuff and he just starts cracking up. He goes, "Okay, Dad, it's pretty funny." I'm like, "Yeah, it is pretty funny." Like, come on. And that's why I say, like, you take the stuff of everyday life, right? And you find the humor in it, and then you highlight it. And that's what I love. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I wanted to say too, so we have the chuckjonescatalog.com/Rubin. And yes, yeah, you got to get the movement in there so that people see the hand signals. And in that, we have all kinds of hilarious cartoons that Leigh has done. There's all kinds of stuff available for purchase. And as I am told, if you are interested in a Leigh original, you may contact your rep. They have the details on that. You're not going to find it on the site. So this is something that you definitely want to reach out to them for. I find, Leigh, as we're going to go through some things, that I love collecting. Like, I'm an artist, but I love collecting art. And because there's just something to owning that piece and having it there, especially something like this when you can walk by it and laugh every time you do. So wanted to get that there. Leigh, I wanted to get into so there's successes and there's failures. Sharks are people too. I'm not going to say that was a failure, right? It's a learning experience. What happened with Sharks are people too?
Okay, so that was a terrible book I did. It was actually the second book. In between Notable Quotes and Encore. Encore was the second Notable Quotes book. I did a book about sharks and undersea creatures, which some of those jokes I took later and they became early Rubes cartoons. But I printed up 5,000 of those damn things too, because that was the cheapest minimum pricing that you could do back in the day. And then I did have them at the ABA show in Anaheim, and a gentleman from Australia came by and wanted to publish in Australia. So actually, that terrible book was my first international.
Deal.
Yeah, so it did work out, and you can find these things online if you Google Sharks Are People Too. Some people were asking ridiculous sums of money for these things, but in truth, about 3,500 of them accidentally got pulped.
Really?
Yeah. And I'd like to say dumped into the ocean, but I doubt that's what happened. But it would have been fitting.
Yes.
But so they're somewhat rarer than the other books now, and they're not available for sale on my website because it's too embarrassing. And I think I only have 10 copies of it anyway. I do have a couple of the Australian ones,
which would probably go for like an insane amount of money right now. So you never know, man, Leigh. You could do very well off just those 10 copies.
Call me.
Sure. Well, I wanted to, that's a great segue into what we're showcasing tonight, right? Which is Rubes, and this wonderful brand that you've built over since 1984, I believe. November 1st, correct, was the first Rubes cartoon?
The very, very first Rubes.
The very, very first, and we're going to show that. Scott, can you take that and let's show?
It's a terrible
number 9.
You needed a drum roll for that. Now look at how.
Okay, I can do.
Thank you. So yes, you can't see the caption on it though. I can't read the caption.
It says, "What do you mean you forgot the groceries? Honestly, Frank, you'd forget your head if it wasn't screwed on."
Jeez, how hilarious is that cartoon? It's embarrassingly bad, but it was the first cartoon I had published in a newspaper, which was the Antelope Valley Press in Palmdale, California, which is still in business. And my friend, he became my friend, the former entertainment editor of that newspaper, a gentleman named Steve Hendrickson, who may or may not be watching tonight. He asked me if I'd like to draw a daily cartoon for the AV Press, and of course I did.
Heck yeah, you did. And so that kind of launches this whole Rubes thing, right? Which is this gigantic. That's why I say you're legendary, man. And look at what you've done.
Stop with the legendary stuff. That's when you're dead.
No. That's no. Legendary is still when you're alive. I forgot. Iconic maybe is after you're dead. Maybe that's
okay. I don't want to be iconic yet. Then.
No. We'll wait on that one. So 1984, I'm terrible at math. 1984, 1994, 2004, that's 30 years. We're almost coming up on 40 years of Rubes cartoons.
Oh my God. Be careful what you wish for. I think it's 37 or.
Yeah,
30. It'll hit into the 38th.
It'll hit 38th year this year.
Yeah, something like that. Or going into the 38th.
Which is amazing. Like that's, and for people who, and what I want people to know too is you're it. If you hunt it, kill it, clean it, eat it, like you do it all. And there's nobody just handing you a paycheck. You are a business and you've got to go out and do this. And you've done this now for 37 and a half years.
Why? Why? God, why?
Right? I think that's amazing. And when we get into these things, like how does this happen? I love the explanation of, you just kind of do it, right? Like what else was I going to do? I'm going to go do this and figure it out. And, you know, I think especially like there's some people that go to school and get their MBAs. And then there's other guys like us who are like, I just like to draw pictures and paint things. How do I make money at that? And I don't want to work for anybody else. I'd like to work for myself. And you just figure it out. But there's some bumps along the way, right? And it's helps to build our experience and whatnot, because I think some of us are just the school is better out in life. Like we learn more in that way. So I'm not bringing this up to bring up any wounds or, you know, have you shed any tears? But, you know, sometimes not everybody's like, woohoo, we'll take it, right?
I know where you're going with this question. I know the direction you're going in toward the question.
I'm steering it in this direction. So as you get off, like you start this thing, so that they want you to do a daily cartoon. And
Yeah.
what was they started with 4 days a week?
It was 4 days a week, and then because about that time, the LA Daily News and the LA Times were opening up offices in the Antelope Valley, which is the Palmdale area. The Antelope Valley Press ramped it up to 7 days a week. And they were open to spending more money and more, I mean, not immediately on me, but for other reasons, the newspaper expanded. And so I was now drawing 7 days a week for this paper. And did I jump ahead too far, or do you want me to?
Nope. You're right in it.
So I mean, you kind of it's interesting how things, you know, that are completely out of your control kind of bump you along too. I mean, it's kind of serendipity doodah, as I like to say, because I didn't know that. I just was doing the 4 day a week thing, and pretty soon it went to 7 days a week, and then and I wanted to take it to the next level, as the kids say these days, or whatever it is. I wanted to syndicate, which means have my stuff appear in lots of newspapers. So I had the editor of the Antelope Valley Press, a gentleman named Vern Lawson, who may or may not be watching this today. I'm still friends with all these people, by the way.
Which is awesome.
Yes. He wrote this terrific letter for me of recommendation that I took and mailed to every syndicate that was out at the time or available at the time. And every one of them rejected me because, you know, if you look in that shelf in the back, there's some red binders off on in those red binders are all my rejection letters.
And you saved every one.
Why not? And
yes.
in fact, I'm glad I did, because I could share one with you.
Yes.
To prove that not all rejection letters are bad.
Correct.
Because they can be instructive. If it's not just a form letter, thank you very much, you know, it doesn't fit our editorial needs at this time, that kind of stuff. I sent one to the McNaught Syndicate in Connecticut, and they weren't the largest syndicate, but they were around, and they syndicated Heathcliff, the cat cartoon. Anyway, I got this letter back from them, which I'll bet you happen to have there.
I do, as a matter of fact. Now, that's a little blurry, and we're just going to say intentionally, because I actually have wanted to read this to you, Leigh, because this was something that, and I love your comment of not all, like, don't take every rejection as just a negative, you know, because sometimes there's something in there that you're like, oh, and it's a learning thing. And what are you going to do with it? Like, what are you going to do with that? And you certainly did something with this, and took it to the next level. So, Mr. Leigh Rubin, Rubes Publications, street name, city, state, zip code. Dear Leigh, after careful consideration by the staff here at McNaught and some of my mentors in the newspaper industry, we feel that the gags in your panel, Rubes, are absolutely fantastic. Hey, there's a thumbs up, right? There's one problem, however.
Oh no.
And that is there should be a flow or a marriage between the artwork and the gag. You do not have this at this point. The gags are too good for the artwork. It just doesn't quite blend together.
How's that for a backhanded compliment?
Exactly right. You're like, hey, oh. Now, last paragraph. If you could somehow work on the transformation from the gag to the artwork so that there's so that it's smoother, I think McNaught would definitely like to pick it up. See if you can't rework it and submit new samples. If you have any questions, give me a call. I'd be glad to talk to you. Sincerely, signature that I can't make out. And there it is. Tim, I believe.
Yeah. Well, and there you have it. So I took that as my, actually, that whenever, what's the date of that letter?
Oh, hold on.
July?
I will tell you.
Yeah.
One more second, please. Let me preview that on my screen. It's July 15th, 1985.
Okay, I was getting married 2 weeks later. So I already knew what I was going to do when I got back after the wedding and honeymoon, which was, my dad was very gracious, and I said, I'd like to practice my art a little bit here. He gave me a week off from work, and I completely changed my style, or up my game artistically, because he told me what I needed to do at McNaught, and I was going to redo it and send it back to him. Now, I did redo my art and send it back to him, but I never heard from him. And they went out of business anyway.
See, that's why they went out of business, Lee. You were like, look, man, I just did this thing. It could have lifted your entire publication. You're like, nah. And then they went out of business. You, however, sir, 37 years running. Proof is in the pudding.
Still.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, hey, I wanted to give a quick shout out. We're going to give a quick shout out to Christopher, who just picked up Yale Man tune as a Father's Day gift to his Yale educated daddy. Says, thanks, Lee.
You're
so
welcome.
Loves.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know that. Is that the?
I don't know. You did it.
Okay. I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
It's the Yogi Bear Yale Man.
Yes.
Okay. Which we don't have that here, do we?
I don't know if we, hold on. Scott knows it by number, not by, yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to look through when we go. Okay. If we do, I'll pull it up. So I wanted to get in, you changed it up. You went after, you started to marry a different style of artwork with the gag, and things start rolling from there. So how does it take off? Like at where does it go where you're like, man, did you feel it instantly? Forget that you didn't hear from McNaught. They went out of business anyway. Who cares?
Well, I actually had some success prior to this. I wrote to editor and publisher, the magazine, gentleman there Dave Astor, who wrote the column, who may or may not be watching. We're connected on LinkedIn now.
See, he might.
And yeah, it's nice that these folks are still around. And he wrote a little blurb about that. Hey, there's this guy that's doing a cartoon, and I got picked up by a couple of little papers, one in Denver and one in Miami. Some weeklies, and then I started sending the stuff out to regular newspapers, regular dailies. Got picked up by the San Antonio Light, which was the first major daily. May it rest in peace, like so many other dailies. It was the competitor of the San Antonio Express News at the time, which is still in business, and really should run my cartoon. Anybody there is watching this.
They should, because look at what happened to McNaught, people. You don't want that again.
I think the San Antonio Express News is doing just fine, I would assume. But anyway,
Lee. We thought McNaught was doing well. That's
true. So I started picking up more papers, mail, did big mailings, got tons of rejections, but also picked up a lot of college newspapers. That was an easier sell, I would say. And also, but you had to work it because newspaper editors and colleges come and go very quickly. So every semester or every year, you'd have to resell them on the idea.
That sounds exhausting.
Well, it was, but I built it up to about 150 papers of the first year that I was really working that. Now I'm still working a regular job, and I still have to go home and draw cartoons every night, but I also had to do the billing and all this. And this is all before the internet. So how would I get the energy for that?
I don't know how you did.
I don't know either. I don't know how anybody had energy for anything. But I guess you want to check back on the bad cartoons, the first, how the change between them.
Well, yeah. So when we went through and what I wanted to show was we're gonna go with 11, Scott. So it was how you changed and then looked at this and then, what you updated. So walk us through this, because we have this and then we have the next one that you did.
Okay, so this is really early on. This was only about the third or fourth cartoon ever, but it was where non-fat milk comes from. It's a really big, skinny cow. It looks a little too happy to be a cow that's not eating enough, but it has the big ice cream scoopy looking mountains on there. So this was an example of the gag being too good for the art. And I guess the next one you'll show is the one where
Yes.
I up the game. So the cow looks a little sadder. You see the ribs sticking out. It's in a more desolate scene. This, you got the sun beating down on this poor cow. It's a more visually pleasing gag.
Yes. And so was this something that you took was this right after you got that letter and you're like, man, I should really concentrate on this? Was this one of the resubmits?
Yeah, there were any number of those. There were probably a dozen. But then after that, all my cartoons were I thought the artwork was greatly improved from the original.
Well, I want to get to the other one with 13. Yeah, there it is.
So there's food, we're saved. Food, we're saved. So you see the sailors are coming up on an island and the natives everybody's happy because they're all going to eat or be eaten. And then there's the reworked version, and that's from an old, the one and only comic book collection I ever did of just, most of the cartoons anyway.
Did you really? Do you still have that?
So probably available for about 10 cents on eBay now. But the artwork was much refined. You can see the waves and more detail in all the people involved, and it was just, again, a better drawing.
Yes. And then we get to this one. So this is our third.
And almost was one of my favorites. The Pillsbury Doughboy meets his maker. The gag still works. He's flattened, but then this is the revised version. So you get much better perspective and you got some nice detail. And I added color later to this, which of course makes it pop more, but it just has a more pleasing look to it, a more professional look, at least I think.
As you're coming up with are you out in nature? Are you taking a walk to the grocery store? Like, where is all of this inspiration coming from? Do you have a notebook that you write everything down in just in case you don't have time to get maybe to that specific one? Like, what goes through your brain? Because fair to say you have thousands of cartoons that you've made upon thousands.
Thousands upon thousands.
Upon thousands.
Yes.
Upon 10,000s, probably.
Well, probably closer between 13 and 14,000.
See, and 13 to 14,000 cartoons on original ideas that you're just coming up with. So where is it coming from?
It's all in there somewhere. Actually, I have a magic pencil, and I shake the magic pencil, and I'll sell it to you. Yeah, it's just, this is gonna burst anybody's bubble about creativity, but it's a job. And if you have to pay your mortgage and buy your groceries, you damn well better be willing to put in the time to develop the jokes and the gags and to make them work and to have them submit and stay consistent with them.
Well, so, what I love about it, we've had, as we've done these Creativeside chats, and we get into lots of us creatives, right? And we make a living doing what we're doing. Like, this is how we make a living. And, you have that, the starving artist kind of thing. Starving artists are the people that don't put the work in. Let's just be real, right? And it is hard work. Like, we had last month, and it was, another artist, and Preston he put the work in, Fabio put the work in, and everybody in there put the work. You put the work. Look at how much work you've put in to not only honing your craft and doing what you're doing, but to get it out there and find the avenues to do it. I think it's amazing.
Say it again.
I think it's amazing.
Okay.
And what I wanted to get into is, and this segues into the next part, is not everything flies, right? So, right. And I'm not saying that because we got a chicken coming into the next cartoon. There. It's because, like, sometimes you submit and they ask you to, like, make a change. And so let's get Let's pull up first attempt on the chicken
Okay, well, it's a pigeon.
or the pigeon. I'm
It's
sorry,
actually
pigeon.
a pigeon. So I submitted this. This is just last year or 2019, or I can't tell. Whatever the copyright date on. So I submit the way this works is I draw the cartoons, I scan the cartoons, I clean up the cartoons, I send them to my editor, my current editor, Alessandra, and I hope you're watching, Alessandra. And I should give a shout out to Creator Syndicate. We kind of skipped that bit right there. I've been with Creator Syndicate. They accepted me
Yes.
in 1988, and I started with them January 1st, 1989, and I've been with them ever since. The last great independent syndicate. Thank you, Rick Newcomb, for starting that company. Rick was, what do they call that word? A disruptor before such a thing was known.
Yes.
He gave the artists their rights. He didn't read them their rights. He gave them their rights and much shorter contracts.
You know what I love about that is because that was groundbreaking because artists did not retain. You usually signed it over, you did stuff. You couldn't retain that. You were even ahead of Image Comics, which came around later in the 90s, which was creator owned and allowed all their creators to retain their own rights, which was a shocking thing. So you were well ahead of the curve on that with the syndicate that you were in, which I think is amazing in 88 that you could pull that off and keep the rights to what you did.
Well, that was Rick's idea. He started that. Yeah, he started that company from scratch doing that.
We love Rick.
So
Rick,
yes,
you're the best.
Rick. So, and so hopefully you're watching, Rick. Now where was I? Oh, so I submit the cartoons and I will get occasional notes. Usually it's just like grammatical errors, over comma, under comma, a misspelling or something or other. Maybe I was tired when I sent the cartoon in, but these days there's a lot of sensitivities out there, and one of them is, and understandably, guns. Back in the day, not a problem putting a gun in a cartoon. Not so much anymore. And so I submitted that particular cartoon that you showed with the pigeon, pigeon mobster kind of guy. He's a mobster because you can tell there's a fedora.
The fedora, that's instant.
And so he's holding a 9mm handgun. He's, what did it say? You heard me right, pal. I said put it all in the sack. So he's not obviously taking the money. He wants all the popcorn because the money's left in the popcorn vendor's hand. And I honestly did not want to rework that whole cartoon and take I thought all that work I put into it and having to draw it twice and get it looking right. I didn't want to just lose the whole cartoon. So I decided I'll change it. And I put a baseball bat in the pigeon's hand, which makes it so much funnier and so less violent.
Yes, it does.
Because he could break. I just thought it actually worked better. So it's okay to take notes like that. It worked better. It also looks a lot better in color, doesn't it?
I love it in color. I think it's hilarious. And it does give that whole, like, I'm going to break your ankles kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, how does a pigeon hold a bat? Apparently he does.
Well, how does a pigeon hold a gun? If you're going to ask the question, it's
true.
I like to call it selective, what is that called? Where you selective disbelief?
Yes.
Whatever. It's
selective discernment, maybe, or
yeah. You can't ask too many questions when there's a pigeon speaking English, holding a gun on or a baseball bat on a guy robbing him.
No, and wanting all the pop. Well, and that gets into the next cartoon, which I wanted to show, which was, and I love this one. This is hilarious. Scott, can you put up 19, please? So, smoking bees. Now, Scott Dickin already said, if I have to explain something, like, look, man, I'm the moron, right? So I'm not going to explain every joke out because it's not going to be funny for me. So I want you to go through what you submitted this. Then what happens?
I submitted this to my former editor and still friend. And hi, Dave, if you're watching. It's just work. That's all we ever do. And it's, dude, you need to chill here. And it's a fact. Smoking calms bees because they use smoke to calm bees when beekeepers are moving the hives around or taking the honey out or the honeycombs out, whatever they're doing, because they don't want to get stung. And so the joke is, I'm going out and worker bees work a lot, so he's going to have a marble or something similar to that. And Dave wrote back to me and said, it's going to look like you're promoting smoking here. And I thought, oh God, I don't want to redo this cartoon. This was my work for the day. I thought, okay, how can I save this? How can I do the workaround? And the workaround was, I'll put a like the warning label on a cigarette pack, a disclaimer into the cartoon. And it's way too small for me to read there. There it is. Warning: smoking carries serious health risks, but bees don't really smoke, so relax. It's just a cartoon.
Which I think makes what you did even funnier.
Well, it's like you get to have it both ways this way.
Yes.
That was so much
you
fun.
Get your cake and eat it too.
Yes, or have your honey and eat it too. Yeah.
Or have your honey. Well, and what I wanted to get into and show the next one was this whole idea of like a process of this. So as you'd mentioned, you'll draw it, especially if it's a multi-panel one, you got to draw it twice and you're trying to get everything down. But there really is a process. And what I love about what we're going to show is how you started and then how you finished. So not just you submitting, what you're doing is your own process and how you're working through these ideas. So Scott, can you pull up 21? Let's get into.
You want the backstory on this, right?
I do want the backstory on this.
Okay, so you recall last year there was a gender reveal party in Southern California, and I don't know, there's a balloon or something and with candles on it, and it started a wildfire.
Right.
And I wanted to, so I thought gender reveal. What about gender reveal? And as one thinks of, the first thing one thinks of gender reveal is the Loch Ness Monster.
Naturally.
Because that's just what you think of. And I thought, what about a gender reveal for the Loch Ness Monster? And if you think on it, you probably know this answer. What's the common name that you give the Loch Ness Monster?
Nessie.
Right. So if they're all Nessies, unless they're, what's the term where animals can procreate without mates? Either cloning, they can kind of clone themselves, or there's a word and I cannot think of it right now. There's going to be nesters and Nessies.
It's like the frogs that can change and be like, oh, we don't have any males. All right, you changed to be a male. Thank you.
Right. Well, that's nature's amazing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, and I do get a lot of inspiration from nature or natural sources, even ones that may or may not exist, like the Loch Ness Monster. I'm not taking sides here. I just wanted to do a gender reveal. So and I want to do a gender reveal, and you can't show the front, these big giant front, full frontal nudity of the Loch Ness Monster. So I had to show it without the front. So this is the first version, and if you can read that caption, because it's too small for me.
It says, "I understand your frustration, Nestor, but trust me, Nessie refers to the name of the lake, not your gender."
Good.
I got that one. It was a little blurry on the last one.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, so then I thought, well, that's a good start, but I think it could be funnier. So I wanted to switch it up. And then it went to the next iteration, which was there's a mom on her cell phone covering her son's eyes, shielding them from the full frontal of the Loch Ness Monster. And what does that say? It says,
"That's right, sir. I believe I've sighted Nessie, or more adequately, Nestor."
Yes. Okay. Yeah. More accurately, Nestor. Right. Okay.
Yeah, accurately. There you go.
Accurately, yes. I'm sorry. I should have these big things. And actually, this doesn't exist anymore. It was erased. So the next one was the third volume. Let's really emphasize the full frontal of the Loch Ness Monster. So you got this little kid, and then I decided I'd make it a little more Scottish sounding. Can you do it in a Scottish accent in your best?
I'm going to try. "I believe you're right, Larry. It looks like more of a Nestor than a Nessie." Is that okay?
That's good. I like that.
Thank you very much. I'm available for voiceover.
then you have to give them union scale for that. So then I thought, well, I wanted to up it even further. I wanted to show full frontal.
Yes, as you should.
And so it went through 3 iterations before it went to the next one. You know. And you can say this in your, speak this in your Scottish accent.
We're gonna give this another shot. Don't look so surprised, laddie. We can't all be Nessies. Some of us are nesters.
Exactly.
Oh, what the haggis? Throw a
Right.
beer. All right, I'm done. You go now.
So now we had him walking into the restroom propped open, so to make it obvious. So it's the little details thrown in there, and I just really like the way that came out. And it was worth going through the 2 days of different iterations of that cartoon to the more interesting version, because you know my goal is it's got to be interesting, and it's got to be funny, and if without both of those, it's just not going to work.
Well, and you know what I love about that is that was the same thing Chuck would say, right? Like him and Mike Maltese, little guys, they would write for themselves. If they laughed and thought it was funny, it made it in. If they were trying too hard to make it funny for somebody else and they just didn't get it, it didn't fly. So that's what I love about it. If it makes you laugh, you put it in. Makes total sense to me.
Yeah, I would love to see the ones they didn't put in sometime.
Right? Be like, come on, give me the outtakes. It's like Robin Williams and Aladdin. Can I just get the track of everything you couldn't put in the film? So I wanted to get into this. It's a great segue now, again, as I mentioned, chuckjonescatalog.com/Rubin, where we have a wide array of limiteds from Leigh on some hilarious cartoons, some that we've kind of referenced here tonight. We do have some limiteds in the LJE catalog. I wanted to start rolling through a few of these. Scott, if you can bring those up, because we went, I love that process and how you get to that final image, and then let's get into these. So these are all for sale. chuckjonescatalog.com/Rubin. And Leigh, we're going to run through some of your limiteds that we have here. I love this, and how super. I know what this doesn't drop till the 12th.
Yep, everybody gets a sneak preview of this. I'm sorry at my syndicate. Sorry that I'm showing this before. This is the first time I have ever, gone 4 days ahead of schedule. But this came about when I was talking to Craig about doing an event with you, and I thought, oh, right when I was talking with him, I thought of this idea and quickly sketched it out. And this is as soon as I could publish it. I could not get it in any faster than the 12th. So
how appropriate on it. And do we have the Ingenuity one? I don't know if we do. I know we emailed it over. Scott, if you've got it, you can put it in. Great. If not, no worries. Because you've got another one dropping with Ingenuity with the helicopter.
Yeah, that actually came out probably a month ago.
Oh, it did.
That was the timing on that was just unbelievable. Unbelievably not exactly coincidental. But it was the first traffic helicopter on Mars.
Yes. Which I would imagine not a lot of traffic.
No, there wasn't.
I wanted to get into some of the other limiteds that we have. Let's roll this one, Leigh.
Oh, my wife's very favorite cartoon.
Is it really?
It is. And if you're watching, Teresa.
She's watching.
Oh, she is? Okay. Well,
yes.
Hi, hon. Yeah. This is, welcome back, sir. Are you planning on being our guest for one night only, or will this be your usual extended stay? Because your dog will never throw you out.
No, no, he will not.
This is ripped from the headlines.
Was it really?
Well, I don't, it's more the metaphorical doghouse.
The metaphorical headlines, yes. And then we get into, I love, this one's hilarious because I can see it happening.
Can you read it in your best?
I can read it too. Yes. Why? Yes, of course I was careful and maintained proper social distancing like you told me to. Why do you ask?
So this is bringing, what's just really fun about this is you're bringing up very popular pop culture characters that everybody knows and mixing them into something that's going on today. So this is more of that social commentary stuff. Just very light social commentary.
Yeah, and I think it's hilarious because we're all thinking around the same things.
Oh yeah, okay. So we got you're doing the coronavirus, the COVID-19 run here.
Just a few.
Okay, yeah, okay. For the last time, you moron, social distancing doesn't apply to us. We are the virus. And just for the sake of humor, those are way bigger than real viruses.
Yes, you wouldn't actually get to see them that large. You know what I wanted to get into? So there's this one, which is the Don Quixote, and then I want to get into the Giclées, which are the limiteds. So what did you love about the Don Quixote? Like, you were inspired by Chuck's.
Well, I know I didn't know Chuck's existed. I had penciled this out in or drawn it, and I sent it to Craig. If anybody doesn't know who Craig is Chuck's grandson, who is kind of the wizard behind that you don't see him here tonight. Hopefully he's out there watching. And I just, because he knows how much I love Warner Brothers and love Chuck's work, and I just thought, wow, what a bizarre. Let's take something from one of the most famous novels of all time and combine it with Warner Brothers and Chuck Jones, and it just worked out so well as a ridiculous pun of Wile E. Quixote, and then to work it in like, oh, have the windmill there and have the the Roadrunner opening the door, and you can kind of see through. He's going to go right off the cliff like he always did. So obviously the rocket is obviously propelled by Acme.
Oh, of course.
Manufactured by Acme. And it was just a blast putting it together. And I had no idea Chuck did a Wile E. Quixote.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, of course he did. Like 20 years before I did. Maybe 30 years before I did.
And 91, I think, is the one when he did the Quixote.
So it's 30 years.
30 years.
And I had no idea. So there you go. He's way ahead of the game. If I thought of it, he already thought of it.
He already thought of it. I want to get into the limiteds, which are the Giclées that we have. Scott, let's go to 56. So we do have some where we have done a limited edition, and we're going to start with the squirt gun fight.
Oh, the old squirt gun fights on a dairy farm.
So what? I didn't live on a dairy farm, but I lived on a farm at one point, and the neighbors had cows, and you had to milk them suckers every once in a while. And believe you me, as small boys, what did you do with the udders? You went to go squirt the other guy.
Right. You got to milk them a lot more than every now and again, or they'll blow up. Right.
True.
Now, yeah, this is, I do like drawing. I love drawing all animals and cows especially. And every year I go to the World Dairy Expo in Madison, Wisconsin. Well, I didn't go last year because it wasn't last year, but it's on again this year. And it's just a lot of fun. I have a lot of friends there, and I get to get my fill of dairy products for the year. I mean, and I probably overdo it, but it's so good.
Yes.
Not to say that California doesn't have happy cows. I'm not
Sure. They have happy cows.
I'm friends of all. Any cow raising state I'm happy with. But no, it's just that was a lot of fun. Hey, there's a little backstory to that.
Yes.
I had a little development deal with ABC television in the 90s. And that was going to be, they were going to do these little in and outs. They weren't the interstitials that were, we'll be right back and back to the show. The bumpers.
Yes.
And there were 20 of them. And one of them was that one. And that's the only one they didn't run. And I have the animated version of that somewhere, on some old VHS tape.
So we did have a comment in that don't bulls have horns, not cows? I don't know. We'll let them marinate on that for a minute as we go to the next one.
I can speak to that a bit.
Yes.
There are ways of, it's called polling, and polling is when the horns are removed.
Okay.
But female bovine can have horns.
Interesting.
Yeah, they certainly can. And if anybody wants to argue with me, just have them email you on that.
I'll let you know what they say.
Yeah.
Let's get into let's thank you, Christopher. Let's get into the next. This is also a limited Giclée.
Yes, it is. Oh, look at that. You got milk.
We go right for the dairy.
We go right.
I love these.
So yeah, this is before this was from this cartoon was done in around 1999, and that's before it. I mean, it was okay to have guys with guns holding up cows then. So
It happens. I mean, you're just doing the commentary. So this one, again, Scott, don't worry, I'm not going to explain it on my thought process on this. We did that already in the pre-show. Also limited G Clay, go for it, Leigh.
Oh, this is technology advances, people stay the same.
See, and it took me, I'm just going to say it because I don't care if it makes me look like an idiot. It took me a minute because I was concentrated on the briefcase and the back seat. That's what I was concentrated on. And so I'm like, oh, all right. And then for whatever reason, I look up and I'm like, that's not a cloud, that's a cup of coffee. I'm like, that's hilarious, which made it even funnier to me.
And it's a Jetsons style, how I was influenced by Hanna-Barbera.
Yes.
The Jetson style little spaceship. We're all waiting for our drivable, flyable cars.
One day we will take to the skies and everything will be even better. I don't know.
No, I hope not.
Please. I don't think that's what's going to come down the pipe. So we've got there's a couple of, we showed the Marvin, and then I wanted to show number 29. Scott, if you can grab number 29. We're going to go back for a Wiley.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So Wile E. Coyote, how famous is Wile E. Coyote?
Yes.
You don't have to show his face. You know that he paints the tunnel. And if he's going to paint a tunnel, he needs the proper shade of black. You got deep space black, black satin, jet black, fake tunnel black. That is the one he needs.
Yes, I love that. And that's available at chuckjonescatalog.com/Rubin.
With a can of paint.
With a can of, like, well, and that's why I love, so many people do the, like Wile E. Coyote is so famous for his, doesn't get enough credit for his tunnel paintings. And I'm like, you took that joke and that kind of idea and then spun it in a completely different perspective that made it even funnier, which I love.
Well, I got to thank Chuck for that.
Yeah, you know what, the dude, he knew what he was doing for sure. I wanted to get to a couple more. Again, you can take a look at chuckjonescatalog.com/Rubin. See, look at that. Christopher picked up the Pinocchio social distancing one. There you go, buddy.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. And I wanted to get to the the 31. I need 31.
Oh,
I love bacon.
Yeah, so this is no porkies were harmed in the drawing of this cartoon.
Like there's something to it that I'm like, yeah, I can see that. I can see that happening.
I don't think I need to read this caption.
No, you don't, because it's good. So I wanted to go one more, and that was the Acme horns, and I want to say it is. No, I don't have that one on my list. They'll have to check out the site, just like the one with the Yale, with the Yogi Bear rug. That's on the site. So Leigh, I'm going to come back to you on this, as we're already at like 7:10 my time, which means I'm an hour and 10 over, which means they're going to give me the hook. But what I wanted to ask was, you've 37 years of doing this, right? Which, as someone who's only 13 years into doing mine, I can tell you, I know what it's like to do the hard work and to get the ups and downs and to watch things, the learning experiences that you do. And really the best education that we have is just by doing. And I have the utmost respect for you, what you've accomplished, where you're going with things. I find it absolutely amazing. It's inspiring to someone like me to show that, you have a talent. Like, Leigh, you have a talent and a gift, and you're using it, and you're making a living from it, and you're inspiring other people and making other people laugh. You're bringing joy to other people through your craft. And I love that. That's something I want, I aspire to do as well continually. And to see someone like you who's done it for longer and more successful is an inspiration, man. And it's something that, like, as I did a little bit more research on you, as we went from last week to this week, you're a regular guy. Like, you can talk to you. We're just hanging out.
We're just hanging out.
We're just hanging out.
I'm a regular guy.
You're a regular guy, but that's the point of it all. Is with all of that you have,
of course.
Like, it's just you're a wonderful human being. So it makes
stop it now.
No, I'm gonna gush. I'm going to gush.
Oh,
it makes
God.
All the stuff that you have on, like, I find that as people get to meet and know artists, right, and creatives, and then they get to see them in their personalities, it attracts you to more of what they do even more. And that's what I found in myself. So what I wanted to close out tonight was, you have, like, we all have this thing that, man, if I had the time, or I really want to do this, or maybe it's like a transition, like I'm experimenting with X medium or whatever. Is there something, and I know there is something, that you've got this passion thing kind of rolling and be like, this is what I want to do?
I knew you were going to ask me this question. Yes, there is, and it's been in the process for probably the last 8 years or so. I've been working with a fabulous a friend of mine who is a videographer and prop maker wizard extraordinaire. His name is Ryan Johnson. Ryan, I don't know if you're watching. You're probably working making props, but he makes a lot of props for Hollywood theatrical movies, TV, stage plays. If you've seen Cobra Kai at all, a lot of things breaking on there. A lot of things he makes that break. But we've been working on a television show called Drawing Inspiration, and where we both have weird jobs, and what our goal of the show is to go behind the scenes of other creatives and where they get their inspiration from, and the whole time I get to draw cartoons about that, and there are little bits of animation thrown in. And there is a pilot of this made where you can share that link if you would like, Ben.
Yeah. I would totally share the link. What is the link?
It's on YouTube, but it's on YouTube. It's Drawing Inspiration and my name. If you Google Drawing Inspiration and my
Leigh Rubin,
Leigh Rubin, it'll show up. But it's
okay.
And we have been working on it for years.
No kidding.
And we're still working on it. And I expect one day hey, Netflix, are you listening? Amazon Prime,
right? HBO
all you
Max.
gotta do is throw some money our way. Yeah, HBO, fine. I don't care. Hulu, I welcome you all.
And I will back Leigh for whatever it's worth, which may only be about the 50 cents on that first card that you sold. But hey, it's another dude in your corner. I think it'd be like, all right, I'm gonna Google that tonight, and I'm gonna go to Drawing from Inspiration?
Just Drawing Inspiration.
Drawing Inspiration.
And my name.
Leigh Rubin. All
and
right.
It's not just email me, I'll send you the link.
Okay. What's your email? I'm not gonna give your email out.
Oh, it's all over my website. I don't care. rubescartoons@gmail.com or at rubescartoons is all my social media handles.
But never mind. You just gave it out, so I can't be in trouble for that. Perfect.
It's all over the place. I'm not hiding. I'm right here.
Yes, you are. And see, Christopher already put it in the chat. So if you're on Zoom and you're in the attendee chat, he found it and he posted the link. Thank you, Christopher. Not only is that dude picking up your work, he's also promoting your show.
Thank you, Christopher. I really appreciate
the best.
it.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on Facebook and on Zoom, I want to thank you again for joining us for a fantastic evening with Sir Leigh, the legend. Not iconic yet, because we're not there.
But I just was knighted.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Well, we started with legend. I can't I can't plateau on that. You gotta take it to the next level. So, I want to thank you, Leigh, for being a part of this. I want to thank you for sharing your creative journey in this, showing us some behind the scenes process on that. I think, what's important, especially as we do these Creativeside chats, is to see that, talented people, right, who do this and who get that out there. There's a lot more behind it than just what you see on, the finished product. And what I love about it, man, is you put the work in, and if it inspires anybody to put the work in. What is it? What is that thing that you want to do? That sparks that creativity in you. Do the work. Look at what Leigh did. He did the work, and look at how many years later where he's at. So I want to thank you, sir, for this. It's an absolutely sincere compliment when I do say I am truly inspired by what you have accomplished and what you do, because I think it's amazing. And I understand the work that goes in. And man, if I can grow up to be you someday, we're doing pretty good, which means I would actually grow more hair.
You could do better than that. You could do better than that. Shoot higher.
Yes. Well, maybe we'll see where we go. But if I can at least, hit the bottom of the plane you're riding, then we're pretty good. So any parting last words, sir?
Laugh more. We need more laughter now, more humor, make more jokes, funny
Yes.
jokes. I mean, I mean, to me, that's kind of what it's all about. Life's too serious.
Yes, it is.
Lighten up.
Lighten up.
Lighten up.
Parting words,
Yes.
lighten up and have a laugh.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, my man, I certainly look forward to hopefully one day soon here, as I will. Looks like California's in the somewhat near future, at least meeting you in person sometime, because that would be a thrill for me.
That'd be great.
I love having you on here. Thank you so much for sharing your talents. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of the Chuck Jones Creative Side chat with Sir Leigh Rubin.
Thank you,
You can
sir.
check out everything that we have available on chuckjonescatalog.com/, as Scott puts up the lower third, Rubin. Maybe he does. Oh, I didn't get it in time. That's okay. chuckjonescatalog.com/Rubin. You can check out everything there. And everyone have a wonderful night. Thank you again, Leigh. Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
Ben. Good night.